This is the Victorious Fatherland Liberation War Museum on the bank of the Porong River in Pyongyang, the capital of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. The museum, which shows the history of victory in the anti-U.S. confrontation, exhibits the U.S. armed spy ship Pueblo, captured by the Navy of the Korean People's Army while intruding into the territorial waters of the DPRK. Pueblo, an intelligence collection ship belonging to the U.S. Pacific Fleet. It is 53.8 meters long and 9.8 meters wide and displaces 906 tons. It is installed with two 12.7 millimeter large caliber machine guns and different kinds of lethal weapons, electronic reconnaissance devices, and sonar sets. Its body is equipped with high-fidelity antennas to detect electronic information of the other side, and sending and receiving antennas to transmit data to the base of the ship. It arrived at Yokosuka, Japan on December 1, 1967, to be inspected, and moved to Sasebo Port on January 8, 1968, to confirm its mission before leaving for the sea area of Korea. It started espionage activities on the 13th. At about 14:50 on January 23, Juche 57, 1968, soldiers of the Navy of the Korean People's Army on routine guard duty caught sight of an unidentified ship intruding deep into the territorial waters of the DPRK. The enemies attempted to run away, even firing machine guns, in defiance of the demand to notify the nationality. Soldiers of the Navy of the Korean People's Army promptly punished them and jumped on deck to bring enemies under their control. They occupied the commanding post first and took the captain of the ship prisoner, letting them know the number of crewmen and demanding their unconditional surrender. It was a showdown between 7 soldiers of the Navy of the Korean People's Army and 83 U.S. spies who had undergone special espionage training. They drove all Americans into a cabin and returned to port. Close battle by 1 to 12 took place in only 14 minutes. The enemies were not from the intense cold of Korea, but from fear they would face to return home alive from the anti-U.S. state. The news of the incident set the whole world into an uproar as soon as it broke out. The capture of a U.S. warship by a foreign country is an eye-opener unprecedented in history. How on earth the United States, the superpower, would answer? Johnson, the then U.S. President, appeared before a microphone in consternation, clamoring, "Pueblo is a civil oceanographic research vessel and was on high seas all the way. The capture of Pueblo is violation of international laws." Now, let us see the facts through statements of prisoners. Pueblo is an espionage ship belonging to the U.S. Pacific Fleet, and the crewmen have all rich espionage experiences. Our mission was to detect military objects and radar stations on the coast of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea and the movements of the Navy of the Korean People's Army. We left Sasebo Port, Japan on January 11, 1968, and entered the waters of East Korea Bay. We started operation camouflaged as a civil oceanographic research vessel. Irritated at the failure to achieve any particular success, the captain gave an order to approach Wonsan closer on January 23. We sailed further towards Wonsan to conduct espionage activities. We found ourselves 7.6 miles from Rio Island off Wonsan. Just at that time, naval vessels of the Korean People's Army appeared to seize us. Despite of the fact, the U.S. amassed huge forces of aggression on the sea off Wonsan in an attempt to threaten and blackmail us. The U.S. will make Wonsan with military retaliation a sea of flames. If a war breaks out in Korea, the U.S. will not hesitate to use nukes. The U.S. was so shameless as to distort the fact as if the Pueblo was captured on high seas. As a thief cries for a thief, the U.S. called on us to apologize to the U.S. government and claim their right to demand compensation for damages. It was really a burglarious logic, but they were mistaken. On February 8, Juche 57, 1968, President Kim Il-sung resolutely declared that the DPRK will retaliate for the retaliation of the U.S. imperialists, return all-out war for all-out war. The DPRK turned out in a right war of confrontation. Leader, just give us your order. The Korean army and people turned out in a decisive battle with the U.S. imperialists in hearty response to the call of the leader. Now they were waiting his order. When bosses of the White House, started by the spirit of Korea, were racking their brains to save the face of superpower, the crewmen of Pueblo were engrossed in seeking a way of survival, submitting written confessions or publishing joint apology. It was the government of the United States of America that drove us to espionage to the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. He should acknowledge the document of apology we submitted to the government of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea and help us realize our wish to return home. The prisoners of the Pueblo are begging the DPRK government to expose before the world the crimes committed by the U.S. government and put pressure upon their government to open a way of their survival. The world once again vividly witnessed the fragility of the imperialist mercenaries. The United States, that had been so insolent in reliance on its mighty strength, yielded to the decisive self-defensive measure of the DPRK and showed up at a meeting hall in Panmunjom. At the meeting, the DPRK side exposed the burglarious criminal acts of the U.S. around the Pueblo incident. Brazen-faced American sweats in a predicament, offering no excuses. On December 23, Juche 57, 1968, the United States knelt down before the Korean people and put its signature on a document of apology. Johnson, U.S. President, saw the document of apology with a bitter distress, screaming, "It is the only document of apology the United States has left in its history, a document of apology to the government of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea." The government of the United States of America showed us full responsibility and solemnly apologizes for the grave acts of espionage committed by the U.S. ship against the Democratic People's Republic of Korea after having intruded into the territorial waters of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, and gives firm assurance that no U.S. ships will intrude again in future into the territorial waters of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. According to the DPRK government's order of repulsion, U.S. spies, together with the corpse of a crewman who was killed at the time of capture of the ship, are driven out. It was another telling blow dealt to a myth about the mightiness of U.S. imperialism. Through the Pueblo incident, the world once again clearly saw that no force in the world can be a match for the Korean people, who are united around the leader single-mindedly. Leaving the disgraceful traits of defeat and ever provocation, the U.S. imperialist aggressors do not renounce their ambition for aggression. It is their burglarious nature. The Democratic People's Republic of Korea is firmly determined to put an end to the history of aggression of the U.S. imperialists and terminate the division of the nation. Under the leadership of the respected Supreme Commander Kim Jong-un, the history of triumph of the Korean people will shine forever.